Hello and welcome to The Stack. This week we speak with the editor of Australian staple, Gourmet Traveller magazine, plus a beautiful interior title looking at a different room in a house for every issue. Enjoy the show. From Midori House in London, this is The Stack, 30 minutes of print industry analysis, and I am Fernando Augusto Pacheco. We start the show with a magazine that I only discovered a few years ago during my trip to Australia, Gourmet Traveller, a beloved title looking at food and travel. The beautiful title is known for its color-bright covers, its annual restaurant awards, and more. I had a pleasure to speak with its editor, Joanna Hunkin.
Gourmet Traveller is actually Australia's oldest lifestyle title. It will be turning 60 next year. So it began in 1966. It was originally called Gourmet Magazine. And then about 10 years into it, they brought in the traveller side. It became Gourmet Traveller. And really it's been celebrating, beautiful food, dining out, travel adventures, throughout that time. We host the annual restaurant awards. So it's the only national restaurant awards in Australia. We name a restaurant of the year every year. And those awards have been going for nearly 45 years. So they're, again, some of the most established awards in Australia. So it is a very beloved title. A lot of Australians have grown up with Gourmet Traveller, people's mums, their grandmas, they've grown up cooking these recipes. There's a lot of trust in the brand. It's a very, very special title to work on. And I've been the editor for 6 years now. And it's just, before this job, I had never worked on a title where people just had universally nice things to say about it. Normally when you work in media, and you tell people what you do, someone's going to start complaining about something or telling you they don't like what someone wrote or they disagree. But at Gourmet Traveller, people just have lovely, lovely things to say about it, and it's very special.
And you might never have been worked with perhaps a food title before, but your mother was a chef, right? So I think this kind of talking about food perhaps run in the family.
Yes. So my mum, she trained, she went to Cordon Bleu and trained as a chef, but she never actually went on to work as a chef. She sort of trained in, I guess, the 1960s in England, in Manchester, and went to work in hotels initially and just found it a very challenging environment to be a young woman in that space. And so she moved into teaching and became a secondary school teacher, specialising in cookery and home economics. And then my dad was an airline pilot. So I grew up in Hong Kong. I actually lived in a hotel for 5 years when I was a teenager and was at boarding school. So I've always joked that, I grew up a gourmet traveller. That is who I am to my core.
That's beautiful. And the magazine is well-traveled. And I think what I liked about Gourmet Traveller, of course, we all love, a food title, how to make recipes. That's also very important. But it takes you to places, So I think the current issue that is out now, I think is the summer Italian edition, right? And I have one copy in hand, the Japan issue. It's beautiful. So I presume even for an Australian reader, it would take him to other places as well outside Australia. And I think that's quite special.
Always, yes. And it is about inspiring people to try new things and explore, different places. But also everything does have somewhat of an Australian connection, whether it's told through Australian chefs and hospitality people overseas sharing their experiences, or, sometimes we've got a beautiful feature in the Italian issue, which went on sale today, that is 2 fashion designers who did a beautiful photo shoot in Italy. And we're just using some of their photos and sort of talking about the art of entertaining and how to create a style and a mood and a vibe. So we sort of explore different places, but always with a slight connection back to Australia and really building that community of like-minded gourmet travellers.
And it's kind of a theme besides the restaurant awards issue to have some sort of kind of a Japanese or Italian issue a year, right? Are those countries quite important for the brand?
Absolutely. So the Italian issue was, this is actually our 20th anniversary of the Italian issue. And it did become a bestseller very early on and has become something that we bring back every year. Part of that, of course, is Australia has a really strong connection with Italy through its history of immigration. It's had a huge effect on our culinary culture here. I mean, I always say Australians are absolutely obsessed with pasta. And also, a lot of Australians love to travel back to Italy because they do have a family connection, or perhaps through friends and family, they've been introduced to Italy and they go back again and again. The Japan issue is something I actually introduced when I became editor in 2019. And again, that sort of really seemed to strike a chord. And obviously, as we've seen globally, Japan's popularity as a tourist destination has just skyrocketed, especially post-COVID. So those sort of, I guess, deep dive issues that are dedicated to one place and one theme are incredibly popular. But we do other things in between. So we will do more sort of general themes. The one that has just come off sale was called The Tasman Issue, which was exploring both New Zealand, but also sort of the Tasman coast of Australia and also into the Pacific Islands a little bit as well. But yeah, we do like to have a theme and really sort of take our readers on a journey and deep dive into a place rather than, I guess, scattergunning all over the show.
And I want to know, how do you guys decide on a cover? Because let's be honest, when I was in Australia, the cover hooked me. It was the beautiful, bright colors. And I don't know, there's something quite special about the colors, the usage of the color in the background as well. For example, the Japan issue I'm holding in my hands, it's a beautiful kind of blues and greens. How important is that preparation for the cover as well? And the dishes are delicious as well.
Yes. So, I mean, firstly, full credit to my incredible creative team and food director, because that's really their work and genius at play. So the process sort of begins about a year in advance. We obviously plan out our themes for the year ahead. And from that point onwards, Max, our food director, will start thinking of different foods and different cuisines he'd like to play with. We are always thinking about the cover first and foremost because it is so integral to what we do. And without that, standout cover, that's really what we live or die by. So Max is always thinking about what dishes could look really fabulous on the cover, but also look great, but be great, taste delicious, be something people want to sit down and eat, be something people want to make and serve to their friends and family. So that's the starting point. And then every couple of weeks, we all get in a room, we go through what's being developed, being tested. Max takes shots of everything as he's testing it. He often is in the test kitchen in the office. So we're all trying the food, we're tasting it, we're talking about what would make it great, what we could tweak, what might make it visually more interesting. And then Jackie, our incredible creative director, she's putting it together with the styling and the mood that she thinks is going to sort of bring it all together and really capture that theme. And then, of course, like everyone, we've got a lot of research and insights into what has sold well before, what we know people have responded to, and we try to distill that and kind of bring it all together. It's very interesting, though, because there's a lot of rules around food magazines that I was taught or told when I first came into the job. A lot of people, my publisher would sit down and say, you can't do this, you can't do that. This is never allowed. These are, and they were the golden rules, because for context, the company I work for, when I first came in, I think we were publishing about 12 different food titles. They have extensive experience when it comes to food covers and also cookbooks as well. So, I really sort of stood back and went, okay, let me take that on board. And then obviously the longer you're in a job, the more you go, well, could we push this and can we try this? And I know this hasn't worked for other people, but we're a bit special. And what's been incredible, and our research team will talk about it all the time, that Gourmet Traveller is almost a unicorn when it comes to food magazine publishing, because we put things on the cover that if they were on any other cover would not sell. And we use colours in a way that no other food magazine can. And when other people try, it doesn't work for them. But there's something about our audience or, there's something about our brand and how people feel about it, that when we put bright yellow, a bright yellow cover with an orange fish on it, people are going to buy it. Whereas I think other people don't get away with that.
Oh, but that's what makes it quite magical. So, when we're talking about, let's say your publisher's talking to you about the big no-nos in food magazines, so were those color combinations, were there one of the big no-nos, for example?
Well, we were told never do a green cover, that green won't sell. Well, 4 of my best-selling issues of all time have been green. We were told never put seafood on the cover unless it's the Christmas special. Well, again, I've had the Japan issue you're holding, that's seafood, that sold very, very well. So again, there are these rules that are made to be broken, and we just, every now and then we sort of push the boundary, push this. And by the same token, some of the really safe bets. So in the rest of food publishing, some of the guaranteed things, usually cakes and desserts, do very, very well. We don't do them. We've tried in the 6 years that I've been editor now, I think we've done maybe 4 sweet covers. None of them have sold well. So I've put a ban on it. We're just not doing it. I don't know what it is, but our readers don't like cake.
They're on a health kick. And
I think they just want to eat more delicious things. I mean, and I get it, because I'm the same. I think savory is so much more interesting than sweet.
Yeah, and cakes, you're right. In food titles, it became a little bit of a cliche as well. So I kind of completely get it. And, I did mention to you before we're going to do this interview, because I've been to Australia, I ate very well. One thing you notice when you go to Australia, that people care where the food comes from. That's quite interesting. I know Australia's been through massive changes in their food scene. But I want to ask you, give us a recommendation of a nice restaurant, a nice bar. And I wonder if you have any opinions about Melbourne versus Sydney, because there is a rivalry, I can tell you. Where are you from, actually, Joanna? Which city are you from?
Well, I live in Sydney,
Okay.
but just to really throw a spanner in the works, I'm a New Zealander, so I'm not Australian.
Oh, that's controversial. That's controversial.
That's a whole different rivalry. All right. So if you were in Sydney, I would definitely say you should go to St. Peter, which is Josh Nyland's incredible seafood-driven restaurant, because he is an extraordinary chef, just doing things that you won't find anywhere else in the world. So that would be one of my first and foremost. And he's actually just moved his restaurant into this beautiful historic pub and converted the upstairs into a boutique hotel. And it's one of the most beautiful hotels I've ever stayed in. So that is a very hot tip. If I was in Melbourne, I would actually go for a drive about an hour from Melbourne out to Mornington Peninsula to a restaurant there called Tedesca Osteria, which is run by a wonderful woman called Brigitte Hafner, and she cooks everything. It's an all-female team, and they cook in the center of a restaurant that her husband designed. He's an architect. They designed it and built it, and everything that they cook is from the garden, hyper-seasonal. They spend Monday to Thursday gardening and preparing, and then they only open the kitchen Friday to Monday for lunch only. There's no dinner, and there's no multiple sittings. You come for lunch, you stay for hours. Jamie, who's their incredible sommelier and co-owner, he has the most incredible wine cellar and does excellent recommendations. And it's just everything in this place is handcrafted, built by hand, from the timber bench tops to the kitchen and the wood fire in the middle of the kitchen. It's absolutely stunning. And you feel like you're in someone's home, but also eating the most elegant, refined food.
Thank you very much, Joanna. The latest issue of Gourmet Traveller is out now. You can find out more about Dan on gourmettraveller.com.au. And now to another great title, the luscious Objection magazine. Founded by creative director Emmanuelle Goutal, the large-format publication looks at a different room of a house in every issue. For the latest, issue 3, Goutal looks at the kitchen. Objection will consist of 6 collectible issues. She paid a visit to Midori House to tell us a bit more about her interior title.
It started as a passion project as I was working as an art director, like on lots of commercial projects for fashion industry. And I was meeting all these incredible photographers. And so, I was like, oh, it would be great to have a space where we can explore themes and be creatives. And I had studied product design when I was younger. At that time, I was feeling like I'd like to maybe work for companies in this world for a change. And I was looking at what was happening in this world. And I thought like, it would be great to have a magazine to talk about and have fun with these objects and present them in a way that fashion magazines do with clothes, And so it started like this. And then I decided to have that focus on, having each issue dedicated to a room of the house and have that collection. Because I like the idea of the collection. I wanted to do a magazine that was also an object, a printed object, because I have, I love print. I love magazine and books. And it was important for me to do something that felt very special. And so I thought having a collection fitted well.
And volume 3 is the kitchen. And of course, you would imagine, the kitchen, you have perhaps an idea of it. But for example, there's not much about food here. So it's definitely a different look at the space itself, right? So I wonder, there's a certain creativity to it as well.
Yes. So the idea is to offer a different perspective on interiors and objects. So we're not really... the idea is really to surprise the readers and connect them with stories. And also one of the big value, I'd say, of Objection is to be timeless. I know, it's a word that's used a lot these days, but it's really about like not being in, the trends or, we're not here to inform readers about this. So it's really about being creative, and hopefully the idea is that this collection can be a source of inspiration even in a few years and, and continue to inspire. So being very creative and, offering these stories is very important.
And give us an idea, how often does the magazine comes out? I know there will be 6 editions.
Yes.
I believe 2 have been published, which is the living room was one of them, and the other one?
The bathroom.
The bathroom, and there will be 3 more to come out, which is very exciting. But how often? Is it a yearly publication?
So it's yearly. But it's been a little bit more than this. I think really it's
COVID time. It doesn't count.
I think it's also, I like the idea that we have that guideline of like yearly, but it's important for me to release it when it feels ready. And sometimes it takes time. Sometimes, the time it takes for us to find the right moment for the creative we work with, and it's a bit magical in this sense. And so I like to keep it like that. And I think our readers understand that because, a little bit of time passed between the last issue and this one. And people are actually really excited and they're ready, And so, I think I like to keep it as a...
That's fantastic. And I wonder, give us perhaps a small selection of the features we can find on Volume 3.
Yes. So on this issue about the kitchen, so we decided not to speak about or not to develop, the food, because it was something that has been done very well in other magazines. And I thought it was interesting for us to keep our focus on objects and the interiors and what it says. So the kitchen here leads us also to the dining room space. And so we have a story that we shot with Lara Angelil that is like a sort of feminist take on the 50s advertising, where you see all these women, posing next to kitchen appliances. And we were looking at archives of these advertising, and there was one image with a woman wearing something like black. It looked a bit like a contemporary dancer. And I thought, wow, we should do something like this. So we created this story with Britt Lieberg as well, who's an amazing performance artist. and with the stylist Charlotte Roberts. And we created this series that's just so fun. We released actually a movie that Lara directed. We use it as our teaser. So there is this. We have also a story about Joseph Walsh, who's a designer who creates this incredible wood furniture where he layers every layer of a trunk of a tree, to make them into these organic, incredible shape. They're unique pieces. And he's been working for a long time with a photographer, Norman Wilcox-Gayson. And so we interviewed Norman to tell us about his relationship with bringing this object to life alongside Joseph. And it's so beautiful. There is also Maureen Evans, who let us dig into her archive, and we selected images around the kitchen. She travels a lot. She works a lot for, restaurants and lifestyle clients. And also she has personal pictures in it. And it gives us a sort of universal image of the kitchen that's very nostalgic, I find. And it's really beautiful. And it's really, you're just brought into this kitchen space that I think everybody can relate to. And one last, we have also a beautiful series with Baccarat glassware. And we shot that with Thomas Chenet. And it's all about making the crystal come to life with this reflection and deep dark, and bring, and show the art behind each of these pieces. And we also have another story about silverware, where I wanted to bring colors to the silverware. So we play with the reflection of...
Is it the cover as well? Which is beautiful.
Yeah, that cover, I had it in my mind when we selected objects. They're from Christophe. And there was this apple, and when I saw it in real life, it's very small. It's just to hold one candy. It's very tiny. And I was like, I want this as our cover, because our cover are always a bit enigmatic with an object. I like the idea that, it's about the kitchen, but it's not too literal. And it was hard to picture, but at the end of the day, I was like, let's try again.
Let's keep trying until...
Yes, and so Chloé Le Drézan, the photographer, did an amazing job, and I love that cover too. Yeah.
Have you always read interior magazines, from a young age, even as inspiration for your work as well as a creative director?
Yes and no. I love magazines, but I don't have a particular, I was not particularly into interior magazines. I like to, as part of my job, I like to know what's going on. So it's more of a large, broader scope. But yes, of course, but I wasn't really influenced, or it was not really a massive source of inspiration. I think I knew I wanted to do something very different. And so my inspiration, they were more from obviously Egoist magazine is a big influence. I mean, these big unbound formats I've always loved. Yeah, I think Egoist was a big one. Carcy, I like any magazine that have a very strong take on their subject. So not particularly interior.
One thing I'm curious, you are French, but you are based here in London. Yes. I mean, because here at Monocle, we've been talking a lot about France. There's a lot of cool magazines coming out there. But I wonder, I know you're based mainly here in London, but what about your clients? Are you also inspired by your own home country? Or tell us a bit more about that.
No, it's interesting. I think it's interesting for me. So I moved to London in 2011. And I think it was a bit the golden time of London at the time. I mean, it was the place to be if you were in the creative industry. Everybody was there. It was very exciting. And I felt like London gave me a lot of opportunity that I couldn't find in France. And after working in London, then some doors started to open in France, with the... Now things have changed since the COVID, mainly. I think COVID and Brexit together. I feel like it's almost reverted. I think Paris is more where everyone is and where, the excitement is. And London got a little bit more quiet, but I think London is still a place where it will always be they're always pioneer. I find in London, there are always people that are like emerging and that inspire Paris or other cities. And so, yes, I work, my work is 50-50. I work with French clients, international clients really, but yeah, I do go to Paris a lot.
And I know there's 3 more to go, including the garden. Do you know the next, or is that a little secret?
No, I think the next one will be the bedroom, and I'm really excited about it.
That's so intimate. That's so interesting as well.
There is lots of theme, and I haven't started the research phase yet, but I've already have some strong ideas of certain editorial I'd like to do, and now I think Objection started to, be a bit more known. Obviously, after it's the third, and so we have also great people approaching us, and it's very exciting, yes, to be able to develop.
Thank you very much, Emmanuelle Goutal there. Issue 3 of Objection is out now. For more, go to objectionmagazine.com. And that's it for this week's show. My thanks to our editor, Jack Jewers. Any comments or queries, feel free to write to me, Fernando, at fp@monocle.com. And remember, we're back next Saturday at 10 a.m. London time. Meanwhile, you can always listen again at monocle.com or subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can also subscribe to Monocle Magazine on our website. You've been listening to The Stack. I'm Fernando Augusto Pacheco. Until next time, it's goodbye from me.